Hi.
Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today. Really appreciate that. We could start by if you could just tell me the names and ages of all your family, your immediate family members.
I'm Louise and I am 36. James is my husband and he's 39, and Freddie is our son who is 4.
So could you tell me a little bit about Freddie's condition and the kind of care he needs on a daily basis?
Freddie has a mitochondrial disease. Essentially, that is where his body doesn't produce enough energy. The mitochondria that he has in his body isn't efficient enough to produce the energy he needs to function like you or I would be able to. As a result, he has low muscle tone, which affects his eating and drinking. So he's peg fed. He also has reflux. Physically, he can't sit up on his own. He can't walk. He can't crawl. He has global development delay, and if he catches an infection or a virus, it affects him much more severely than it would other children. So in terms of the care he needs on a daily basis, it's very full on. He also has epilepsy. He's on approximately, I think it's 11 medications 3 times a day. He has various combination of those, as well as peg feeds. He has those 3 times a day, up to an hour a day they take. As well as that, because he doesn't drink or take oral fluids, all his hydration has to be done through his peg as well, which we do 5 times a day. So his care is pretty intense.
So could you talk us through when Freddie was diagnosed, how that happened, and the impact it's had on your family life?
Yeah, Freddie was rushed into hospital at 8 months old, having had a seizure. We weren't certain at the time it was a seizure. We just knew that his arms were making strange movements. So I rang 111. They dispatched an ambulance and he was blue lighted in that night. Prior to that, he had been normal, I guess is the best way to describe it. He had been hitting milestones. He was classified as a healthy, typical child of his age. But we had, from around 6 months of age, had a few concerns about his development. He had stopped rolling. He wasn't really smiling or laughing anymore. But on the reverse of that, he also wasn't crying either. And I'll never forget that night after he'd had the seizure when the ambulance came and the paramedic pricked his heel to take a blood gas, and he didn't even flinch. And she looked at me and said, "Is that normal for him?" And I said, "Oh, yes, he doesn't really cry." And I remember her looking in me in the eyes and she just said, "That's not normal. He should be crying right now and he's not." Um, so they took us to hospital. He continued to have seizures on the way to hospital and more when we got there. A consultant met us when we arrived and asked if there was anything else we needed to tell them. He asked me what Freddie's development was like. And I said, "Oh, funny you should ask. I can't remember the last time he rolled over, and we can't remember the last time he laughed." And I knew then from the consultant's expression that this was serious. What we were dealing with was serious. It wasn't, I use the term just, but it wasn't epilepsy alone. There was something more going on. Within 3 days, Freddie had had an EEG, an MRI, a lumbar puncture, and I don't even know how many blood tests. He'd had intervention because the seizures had started getting worse. And we were sat down, and it was said to us that he had a mitochondrial disease and they needed to test further to see if they could find out which one specifically, because there were a lot of these types of diseases. That was also when we were told there was no cure and he would never get better. All they could do was help us manage his symptoms and give him the best quality of life that they could. At that stage, I remember my husband turned round and looked at the doctor and said, "How long have we got?" And she said, I don't know. I can't tell you that, but it's not going to be imminent. We need to carry on doing tests." So, as you can imagine, It was at that point our lives were turned completely upside down. We didn't know anybody who had a child with any kind of special need or metabolic condition or medical complexities. We were all of a sudden, we were thrust into this world of medical dependency that we'd never seen, never been a part of, didn't know where to turn. Overnight, our baby suddenly had a really large medical team. We were meeting lots of different consultants. We had an epilepsy nurse that started coming to our house once a week, community nurse that started being involved. We were at the hospital. We were travelling further afield to other hospitals for more in-depth appointments. And bearing in mind all this was going on, I was on maternity leave. I was due to go back to work in the September, which around the time of Freddie's first birthday. But at that stage, he was still having seizures. They had been well controlled initially, but then they started coming back. They were mainly happening through the night. So I went off work sick. There was no way I could return and commute to London whilst I knew what my baby was going through. In the end, I gave up work. There was no way I could go back to a job when my child needed so much care. I wanted to be with him. And more than that, I didn't know how long we were going to have him for, and I didn't want anyone else to have that part in his life. I wanted him to spend it with me. Our family and friends didn't know what to say to us. People often said, oh, you don't know what will happen in the future. Science is a wonderful thing. I'm sure they'll come up with a cure. We know that there won't be a cure for Freddie. And I think we've kind of come to terms with that because we can't change that. But essentially, at that time, people were trying to say the right things, but they weren't. It was hurting us further and making us feel more isolated, because we didn't know what to say to people either. It was a very, very lonely time and a very dark time that summer.
So could you talk us through the most challenging part of Freddie's living with his condition and how each helps you with that?
The most challenging part is the 24/7 care. It's the not being able to switch off, the needing to remember doses of medications, needing to make sure there's enough medication in the house for him, make sure you stick to a time schedule for when he needs everything, also physically handling Freddie and trying to make life accessible for him. It's constant and there is no break from that at all. How each helps us with that is they let us have a break. We can come here and the nurses can take over and they can worry about the medications, about the feeds, about the hydration, and you get to step back and be a parent and not be a carer. You get to enjoy your child in that mother or father child relationship, that family, as opposed to being a carer. Essentially, being a medical caregiver to your child. And also, there's all the lovely aspects of the music and the hydro and the other things that you can access here as well.
So can you tell me, how were you referred to each?
I referred us to each myself. When Freddie first was taken into hospital when he was 8 months old, not long after that, his epilepsy nurse came to one of her standard house visits and she brought with her a list of charities and services we might want to think about contacting, and on that list was each. I mean, at the time I was horrified and I just put the piece of paper to one side because the thought of having received this diagnosis for our baby, but also then being given the details of a hospice, just filled me with dread, and to me it was elevating us into this, even more into this life, that I wasn't ready to deal with emotionally, I guess, was trying to digest. um, so I kept the piece of paper, but I tucked it in an organiser away. And then in the January, so Freddie's diagnosis happened in the June, so the following January, um, we had a chat, James, my husband, and I, and we decided that it was the right time to make that phone call and to ask for help and to start the relationship with the place where we believed we would go towards the end of Freddie's life. We didn't want to leave it too late, so that's when we decided to reach out.
So, could you tell me a bit about what care and support services you've received from each and how long you have been receiving them for?
We have been coming here for about 3 years, I guess, and just under. And during that time, Freddie's been doing hydrotherapy. Um, that he didn't start from the beginning. I guess he's been doing hydrotherapy for about 2 years, maybe, if that. Um, we come to the social days, so we've come to music therapy, um, beach days, all sorts of social gatherings. Lots of things go on at Christmas time, and that's where you get to socialise and meet and integrate with other families who also access the service, who are in similar situations to you. They're lovely environments because you feel normal and you get to share stories with people, and they're real bonding sessions, really. Obviously, we receive respite as well. We come here for play days or we stay overnight, and the nurses look after Freddie, and that allows time for my husband and I to go out for a meal or go to the cinema or just get an early night and try and get some sleep and rest. That service we find absolutely invaluable. And as well as that, I myself have taken part in the H Word project, which was with other mothers who access the service for their children. And for me, again, that was a huge bonding experience. Being able to, the family socialising is lovely, but obviously you're still distracted trying to provide care to your child. Whereas those sessions, not having the children there and actually being able to sit and talk and share your experience of the service and everyone coming from a different perspective, was well, it was a beautiful thing, really, wasn't it? It was really lovely. So yeah, so it's not just for the family, but also for myself as well.
So, I just wondered what it is about each services that you found the most beneficial to you and your family, and what's made the biggest difference.
For us, I think, obviously the nurses and the healthcare assistants and everyone here are amazing, but having the opportunity as well to meet other families like you in your situation who on the outside world feel different is, I've used the word invaluable before, but it is invaluable. And we have met some very, very good friends here who we socialise with away from each, we spend time with, we do things together. We took our boys to the zoo a few weeks ago. um, Being able to find people like you who understand where you're coming from and understand the life that you're leading is it's a big bonus that I didn't expect to get from this service.
Could you tell me a bit about the difference each makes to your family and what you think it might be like without each?
Each has made a huge difference to our family, and I think family is the key word there. I always saw it as a service for Freddie, but it isn't. It is a service for the whole family. And to give you a snapshot, it's difficult. It's really difficult trying to maintain a marriage whilst also looking after a medically dependent child. My husband works full time and I'm a full time carer. We don't have anybody. We can't ring somebody up and ask somebody to babysit one night because our friends are going out for dinner or whatever the occasion may be, the only time we get time together without Freddie there is when we're at each, is when we've got their support, is when we know that they're able to look after Freddie. And thanks to them, this year we have been out, I think it's 3 or 4 evenings this year. They're the only evenings we've been out since we became parents to Freddie. And all of those occasions wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have each's help and support.
So, could you tell me, if there is one, what is your most treasured each memory?
I've been thinking about this and thinking about it a lot because we have so many. But the one that I think I would like to share is from the first time we ever came to the treehouse. So Freddie was about 1 year, 3 months, I guess. I'd referred us. We came to the treehouse. We were invited to a music therapy session. I think it was called Music and Cake or something like that with Ray. And we'd never been before, never been to a hospice full stop or children, let alone a children's hospice. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what we'd see. We didn't, just had no idea. And James and I came with Freddie and we went into the music room and met some other families. And Freddie saw the chimes and he was just batting the chimes and laughing. And he laughed so much. And for a child who otherwise had lost all emotion and didn't laugh and didn't cry, to see those things come back and see him proper belly giggling because these chimes were just incredible to him. And then later on in that session, sitting with Ray, playing the keyboard. And also to note that this is also a child that when he was in hospital the previous June, he'd even lost his eye tracking. He was like a newborn baby. He didn't lift his arms, he didn't reach for any toys, he didn't look at anything if you showed him anything. He didn't look at me to see when I was talking, where my voice was, follow my voice to see where mummy was. So to see him, how he was on that occasion, I think we both cried a lot of happy tears, and immediately we felt at ease, and we knew we'd made the right decision. We knew this was the right place to be with our boy.
So you mentioned earlier that you took part in the H Word project at each. I just wonder if you could say a little bit more about the project and what it meant to you, and anything about how your perceptions of the word hospice may have changed.
Yeah, so we did the H Word project. If I'm honest, I don't really know. When I was given the flyer that it was happening, that this group would be getting together to change people's perceptions of the word hospice, I don't think I really understood what I was getting into. I don't think any of us did we? But I thought it was about taking photos, and I like taking photos, so I thought it would be fun. Um, and the more sessions we went to, the more involved it got in, it got quite deep. We all went on a journey together, talking about our emotions and our feelings to do with hospice. And I guess for me, part of the reason it took me so long to pick up the phone and ring each and refer Freddie, refer our family, was because to me it meant death. And I was scared. I was, I was scared. I was scared of hospice. I was scared of my child needing a hospice. I thought it would be clinical. I thought when we came here, I would be surrounded by sadness, by children passing away. I thought it would be depressing. And we had made a decision not to live our life like that, not to live our life focusing on what the future held, and instead to focus on a day-to-day basis on what Freddie could do and what we could do. And we wanted to spend our time having fun, making memories, and we didn't want Freddie's diagnosis or prognosis to stop us doing the things that we talked about doing when I was pregnant. Um, so having spent the time here, it made me realise that that's exactly what each do. That's I mean, that is what they do, and that's what they do for the families. They spend time concentrating on what the children can do. They focus on the positives. They make it fun, and that's how it should be. And to sit down with these other women who all came from very different perspectives and hear that they felt exactly the same. And even if you've lost a child, they still give you that opportunity to make memories and to have special time. And so that is an ethos that carries through every stage that you access the service. And being able to share that and bond over that with other women was a privilege.